Hi, guys. Today is Tuesday, my favorite day of the week. We've got to talk about what's going on here because you know how I'll tell you, well, this is the tip of the iceberg. What we can't see is underneath the surface. And that's really where the danger lies. Underneath the surface. Now, we're going to talk about something today that I've actually been wanting to talk to you about for a while, but there's been so many things going on that it's kind of hard. So hit that like button on the way in. If you haven't subscribed yet, let's subscribe. But today we have to talk about SRTs. What are SRTs? Significant risk transfer. That, my friends, is a product that Wall Street has come up with. And I would say usually you always have to pay attention to how they name something. Usually it's just the opposite, but in this case, no, we are looking at significant risk transfer to you. So you need to be aware of it and you need to do something about it. Let's just go to these slides because banks are dumping exposure onto investors and posing risk to financial stability. This comes out of the most current, which we're going to dive into, October financial stability report from the International Monetary Fund. But risk transfer. Okay, so somebody says people don't understand that. Well, let's see. If you were taking a risk and you took on a lot of debt and you had a way to transfer that risk from you to somebody else, that's what we're talking about here. That's simple. And we're going to do live Q&As. So if you guys want to take notes on this and then ask me afterwards to make sure that I'm clear on this, because you need to be crystal clear on what's going on with this. Because on top of just transferring the risk, the products that Wall Street is making, I mean, it's incredible that any of this should be legal, but hey, it's all contract based. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. Is putting leverage on the SRTs, and leverage is simply this: debt upon debt upon debt, layers and layers and layers of debt on top of transferring the risk of debt. I mean, you have to go, huh? Well, if they make it really complicated, it's so that you don't question them. Make no mistake about it. But for now, asset pools seem to be of high quality. So in other words, what they're saying is all of this debt seems to kind of be in, higher quality. They'll be able to make it, but that's changing. All right, let's just kind of dive right in. Corporate leverage, debt upon debt upon debt, is now at the highest levels since the aftermath of the financial crisis. They're talking about 2008, and crash buffers are dwindling, which means that, if you take on a lot of debt and you have absolutely no cash and you run into a problem, how are you going to pay that debt? How will you service that debt? So the leverage is at the highest levels. Cash buffers are dwindling. So what they're doing is they're transferring that risk to you. I'll get more into this. Concerns around the quality of the assets, the credit quality, being bundled into significant risk transfers are rising among market participants, and the opaque transactions could increase risk to financial stability. Nobody's tracking this stuff. That means that it's the bottom part of the iceberg that no supervisor, nobody can see. They don't know when and how this is going to hit. That's the whole point of being prepared, so that no matter what happens, you are okay. And those people that think we've got all this time, you got as much time as you have and not 1 second more, and nobody can tell you when that's going to be. But the transfers, I'll get into this more, may also mask a traditional lender's resiliency. So we go through those stress tests on the banks, and and everybody passes. They don't have good living wills. So if one of them gets into trouble, they're not going to be able to be unwound. And on top of this, you've got these opaque markets that nobody can see what's going on. Great. That sounds like a great recipe to me. So I think that what we're looking at is certainly a black swan event, but the great financial crisis part 2, is that what we're looking at here? Quite possibly. Now, this just came up this morning, and I thought that it was really easy because Commerce Banks sell SRT. SRT stands for Significant Risk Transfer, as CEO embarks on a plan to free up capital. So they're keeping this garbage or this debt on the bank's books. They have just taken the risk of default off of those debt instruments and sold them to someone else. That's like in 2008, what happened? The banks kept the mortgages, but they took the promise to pay those mortgages off of the mortgage and put it in a bundle. That's called a CDO, collateralized debt obligation, and sold it. But they still had the risk. Okay, Commerce Bank is seeking to free up capital to create more room for investor payouts. Isn't that interesting? Now, once that money leaves the bank, you can't claw it back when you get into trouble. And we've been watching this happen for a while. So here's JP Morgan's risk swap ends up at familiar places, rival banks. Because even though the SRTs are meant to shift the risks out of the banking system, all of this stuff is incestuously intertwined. The use of leverage by buyers of the complex securities is calling that into question because they go to the other banks to borrow the money to buy these significant risk transfers. So it just creates this big doom loop. Does that make sense? Because again, I'm going to say, jot down anything that you don't understand. Let's talk about it in full afterwards. But it's a booming business, so banks are making money on it. So what do they care, right? Look at the use of SRTs. Banks issued about 25 billion of SRTs in 2023, partially offloading the risk of 300 billions of loans. But then they're borrowing on top of that, creating all of that leverage back in the banking system. And that creates what's called a doom loop. So this goes down, it has an impact here. That goes down, it impacts there, on and on and on. I will continue. Between 10% and 50% of the money for these deals could be borrowed, but they don't know. It's opaque. They can't see. This is a guesstimate. It could be 90%. It could be 100%. Nobody knows. Although it is impossible to be certain, given the private bilateral nature of such loans. So this takes, what this is a derivative, right? And a derivative is derived from an asset, but it is not convertible into that asset. So once it's derived from that, and what are they saying? Bilateral nature of such loans. That means that each one of these are unique between two parties. That's it. So there's really no market for these because you're making an agreement with somebody else. Well, can you count on anybody else wanting that same agreement? The answer is no. The answer is no. If a bank's lending against the SRT instrument as collateral, you're clearly not transferring the risk outside of the banking system. So what we're looking at is a whole bunch of garbage, a way for banks to make more money, but they're not really, they are transferring some of this risk. So we're going to get into this in just a second, but it's not really transferring outside of the banking system. It's also a lot of that risk is still being contained inside of it. With the financial sector continuing to transform. You see, I've been talking to you about this, frankly, since 2009, because the system died in 2008. And this is a reset system. So where everybody thinks that this might be something that's going to happen in the future, what you need to understand is they are trying to generate this soft landing so that those that got us into this mess remain in power on the other side of this crisis. I say no. I say let's create a global sound money movement and take their power away and take our power back. Period. I don't like this for the future of our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. We got to do something about it. But it is imperative that policymakers think through the future of finance. And I would say that it's critically important for you to also be thinking about the future of finance. We can't just sit back and allow it to happen to us. You know, would it matter to me that much? Frankly, no. I'm 70 years old and I've been accumulating and I'm in good shape because I am as independent and self-sufficient as possible. At least I'm working on it and I'm further ahead than a lot of people. But this isn't just about me. This is about the world. This is about your world and your children and your neighbor's world and their children. And that's why we're all here. At least that's what I believe. We are here to share the gifts that we've been given, and it's time for us to take our power back. And this is the opportunity because the whole currency system is resetting. But let me go back to that significant risk transfer because you guys know I say it all the time. When enough risk has been transferred from the few, from the elites, to the many, to the public, it will become too expensive for the central bankers to keep supporting, and then everything collapses. So this is out of that report. You know, we've got the link below, so go in and read this report yourself. But banks use SRTs to offload risk and claim capital relief because if they offload that risk, that means that they have to hold less cash, less capital in case of a problem. And that's what they were referring to earlier by lower cash buffers. And once that money goes out of the banking system, it's not there if they get into trouble. So what you're looking at is if there were they just keep creating products to keep this thing going until it can't anymore. Okay, I mean, this drives me crazy. This is a stylized example of a direct bank issued loan, basically. Without any SRTs, they do $100,000 portfolio and they have to hold capital requirement is 10.5%. Now, if they do the SRTs, then that same capital requirement is only 3.8%, basically freeing up an additional 7% that they can go out and send out to investors or use to buy other stuff or gamble with or what have you. So can you see how this new product that they created, it's been around for a little while, but just since 2016, this is not a lot of time. It has been untested, but this could easily topple the system because you can't really ultimately transfer risk. And if banks are loaning entities money to buy these SRTs, it's not outside of the system. Okay, so you can see how that benefits the bank. This synthetic synthetic securitization volumes have grown in recent years. Yeah, they've started in 2016, and you can see where they are right now. This is the EU in green, UK is in sort of this reddish color, and then the others, all others, are in blue. Great. So you can see the level of growth, and that's what always happens, right? Oh, here's a new accounting trick. They don't really change behavior. They just change how they account for that behavior. And the more opaque it is, that means that you and I can't see it for sure, but neither can the regulators. Neither can the regulators. Not that they, all right, I won't go there, but credit risk indices suggest asset quality in SRT reference pools is starting to deteriorate, and actually in a very, very big way. And it doesn't matter where these SRTs are generated, although the U.S. credit quality is deteriorating faster, they're all deteriorating. Of course they are. Of course they are. And considering the fact that grading and rating services kind of tweak things based upon whatever formulas, because let's see, who pays them? The corporations that they're rating. Yay. We don't really know about any of this debt being actually credit, what the real credit quality is. So the fact that they're concerned about the deterioration is kind of important. Meet the new derivative that could implode the global financial system. It hasn't been around that long, hasn't been tested yet. It's about to be tested, and similar to CDOs, where they took the promise to pay that mortgage out of the mortgage. That's what they're doing here. They're taking the promise to pay this debt off of the debt and selling it to investors, but banks are loaning those investors, and we'll talk about that and who they are in just a second, but banks are loaning those investors the money to buy these synthetic and significant risk transfer products, these derivatives. I mean, is it starting to make your head swim? Because that's the whole point of it anyway. So the question that the IMF asked is this managing risks or creating new ones? My opinion, creating new ones, and you can't even see them coming because they're the bottom of the iceberg. SRT moved the credit risks associated with a pool of assets from banks to investors, partially so. An increasing number of banks around the world have begun using these synthetic risk transfers to manage credit risk and lower capital requirements, like I just showed you. Globally, more than 1.1 trillion in assets have been synthetically securitized since 2016. And we have no idea of the leverage that's used in them. So if they're just talking about 1.1 trillion, frankly, that leverage, I mean, gosh, in derivatives, they've shown that they could be easily more than 1,000 to 1. We could be looking in the quadrillions of risk. And remember, in those derivative products, every single entity, the IMF, the BIS, the FDIC, the Federal Reserve, the World Bank, take your pick. Nobody knows the true value of the assets at risk. I'm telling you, when this thing implodes, it becomes a black hole, sucking everything in with it. Except for this. That's why you hold it, you own it outright, it runs no counterparty risk. What I'm showing you is beneath the surface, this is all counterparty risk. And it scares the crap out of me. I'm not going to lie. In Europe, issuers of SRTs include globally systemically important banks and large banks, as in the U.S., regional banks issue SRTs as well. Why not? It's the party. It's the banking party. You and I don't get to play, but they all get to play. We just get to pay. Private credit funds are the dominant buyers, with a market share exceeding 60%, followed by pension funds with close to 20%. So, what do we know about these private credit funds? They're not private anymore. That the funding to support these private markets has grown to a level where they're selling it to you and me, and you don't even realize the risk that you're taking. Right? When enough risk has been transferred, these markets will become too expensive to support, and who's going to be left holding the bag? Same entities that are always left holding the bag. It's just that simple. And that, my friends, is when this crisis becomes clear. So let's see. IMF stated dangers of SRTs. Elevated interconnectedness between banks and private markets. There is no escape from this. Elevated leverage levels last seen in the aftermath of the great financial crisis, but the reality is they don't even know how much leverage is really in these. They just know it's elevated, right? Lower capital coverage, like I showed you, where they transfer this risk, so therefore they have to hold less money in their coffers in case of emergency. That's great. Opaque bilateral trade, which means that nobody can really see what's going on. And this is an agreement between two parties, bilateral. So that means there isn't even a market for them, other than the ones that are between the two entities that agree to this. Banks providing loans to buy loans issued by other banks. So that's not transferring the risk out of the banking system. That's keeping the risk inside of the banking system, but also engaging the private markets at the same time. May hide weak fundamentals of the banks, right? We've seen a number of banks go down since 2023. We know that they're all underwater, especially with any of the debt that they bought over 15 years of zero interest rate policy. All of that debt is completely underwater. So it really hides the weakness of the bank. You need to have more than one bank, let me tell you. And it masks the bank's resilience. So if there is a run on the bank and they have less money in there, number one, they're going to have a hard time paying you out, aren't they? Just like we've seen with Synapse and the problems that they're having paying out their deposits to all of their customers. And you really can't tell the health of the bank because it's all about hiding the truth. How many times can you be lied to when you do not know the truth? Every single time. And then a negative doom loop during a liquidity squeeze. So as I said before, so this bank gets into trouble. That is then passed on because they can't pay the debt to this bank, which then can't pay to that bank, which then can't pay to that bank, which then can't pay to that bank, which can't pay to you. So that's that doom loop that continuously reinforces if things don't go perfect in every area of this transaction. And complex products make the identity of the ultimate risk holder less clear. So what happened in Synapse? Because of all of the hypothecation and rehypothecation, so all that leverage from this bank to 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 this bank, it's not clear where money evaporated or actually who even owns what and where it is. And that's what they're saying here. These complex products make the identity of the ultimate risk holder less clear. Guess who that ultimate risk holder is? What are you going to do about it? SRT's doom loop could trigger a total collapse with you holding the bag as usual. And if you're dependent on that system, you're going to be holding the bag. It becomes more and more critical that you call and get your sound money strategy in place today, because you or I, none of us can actually tell you when exactly this is going to happen. But what we do know is that it will happen. And if you don't have things in place when it does, it's too late to do anything about it then. You need to have hard, tangible assets outside of the system, just like the banks do. We're talking about something that's all digital, that's derivative. It's even worse than it being just all digital. It is that debt upon debt upon debt upon debt, these complex problems, right? So central banks reported 40 tons of net buying in September via blah, blah, blah. Demand recovered during the month, so the monthly gross purchases of 48 trillion were offset by a little bit of 8 trillion in sales. That means this is a month over month change of 600%, month over month. So those that actually understand to a degree, because remember, this is an opaque market, they know what's going on. They're getting prepared for it. Are you? Are you fully prepared? If you haven't set up your strategy, get it done. If you set it up, but you haven't executed it, get it done. Get it done. Food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. These are the things that we know. And yes, there are lots of subcategories, no doubt about it. But, there's medicine. There's all sorts of subcategories in the 8 key mantra pieces that really, frankly, I developed them as I was doing it for myself. So it's not perfect, but it's a place to start. And these are all the things that we need to sustain a reasonable standard of living. So if you don't have them done, that's what makes local community getting that piece done right now, ASAP, a top priority. Because, look, when 2008 happened, I knew the system died. There wasn't one doubt in my mind. And so that's when I became an urban farmer. I'm not a farmer or even really much of a gardener by nature, but I understand currency life cycles, and I understand that food, that what we're talking about in the mantra pieces, that food becomes the single biggest issue for most people. Go to a local farmer's market, get to know the people that purvey and create your food, give them a day's labor or so, learn a new skill, create that relationship. Because we are so much stronger when we come together than as an individual. I'm one person. What can I do? Nothing, not much. But together, we can do everything. We can make the change happen. So globally, we've also got to do it because this new monetary system must have convertible sound money in its system, or it doesn't mean anything, as Zimbabwe just showed us. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. And if you can't convert it out of the currency, it's not backed, it's pegged, it's linked to the manipulated spot price, it means nothing. If enough of us buy gold and silver on a global basis, 8.4 people in this world, we can make a difference. Absolutely. We can. So central banks are loading up on sound money because they want to retain their freedom and their choices. And they know that we're about to have a huge crisis because they need it. They're engineering it. And they've already announced to you via those 50 basis point interest rate drops that they're ready for the hyperinflation. They're ready. Are you? Because it's critically important. What? Another bank, just recently failed. First National Bank of Lindsay. Is that a one-off? Because every time these banks are failing since 2023, they want you to think it's a one-off. No, they change things then, right? We know that Silicon Valley Bank and those other banks that failed in really up until the First National Bank of Lindsay, even uninsured deposits. Remember, when they create all of this money, it has to go someplace. It doesn't just evaporate and mean nothing. It goes into all of these garbage products. That's what it does. And that pushes the values in terms of dollars, the nominal value, up, but it also pushes the purchasing power value of all of this down. And they know that there is even, go to the Fred, you can see it yourself. There's virtually no purchasing power left. That requires our confidence, and that's what they're trying to do. Keep our confidence, keep us keeping all of our money. Goodness gracious, this is so heavy. Why in the world would I want to carry this around? I'd want to carry it around because it's sound money. And I know, because I read their stuff, I know what's coming. And I hope I'm doing a reasonably good job, because I always try and get better at it, at explaining what's happening to you, right? I want you to have the ability to make educated choices that puts your best interest first. So if you haven't watched that video, go back and watch it on the First National Bank of Lindsay failure. And let's see, I've got a little reminder in front of me. Oh, yeah. First of all, make sure you always let us know your thoughts in the comments section, whether we're live or you're going in to watch a video that we'd already recorded. But if people call the Zang number for questions, then I'm supposed to let you know, that our strategy specialists will actually be the one answering. And it says not you, but quite frankly, I work with the strategy specialists on a one-on-one basis. We meet every single week. They all have my phone number. If you ask them something that they can't answer, they can easily get a hold of me. So I meet with them every week, and then every week, additionally, I have one-on-one, 2-hour sessions with each one. It's rotating, but each one of the strategy specialists. And on top of it, they all have full access to me. So they know how to get a hold of me if they need me. We are a community. We are a team, and we are all there to support your efforts and help get you protected, because I'm hoping you can see what's going on here. And so now we also have Arthur, that Adam is out sick today. So Arthur is going to do the questions, and the first one is from ML. What are the implications of the BIS IMF World Bank discussing the potential backing out of Enbridge? It's really interesting, because Enbridge is, and all of the central banks are really trying to create this cross-border transfer of wealth, because then it's one world. So the implications of them backing out of Enbridge kind of depends on if you're talking about the BRICS Enbridge, and then I would say that's more about control, or the experiment that the BIS has been running with all of the banks. They're not going to stop the global spread of a world currency. And especially when you're looking at the IMF, that's been diligently working on a universal currency because of the SDR's composition, which is a basket of currencies. So no, they're not going to ever want, they're not going to want to promote that control to a group of countries like the BRICS, they're going to want to retain that and have it more inclusive. So I think that's what it's about. And Dominic Estelli, do you assist citizens in the United Kingdom? Dominic, we are working on that. So stay tuned. And yes, I hope that I'm assisting, even if you can't buy your gold and silver from us, I certainly hope that you continue to accumulate. And that's why I share more and more of the strategy. And let me say in here that even though it would be different, a little different from country to country, basically it's the same wherever you are. You need to have security in food, water, energy, security itself, barterability, which for me is silver, wealth preservation, which for me is gold. These are the things, these parts of the strategy, community, so both a global and a local community, and shelter. And this isn't contained. I can't just at this juncture position you into gold and silver. I can just help you understand what to do. And you know, if somebody says, well, I have a strategy, they need to get specific with that strategy. I can tell you that our strategy is built on those repeatable patterns that happen every single time there is a currency transition. And so it's applicable all around the world. And when I can assist citizens in the UK, I promise I will let you know. And actually, the end of this month, I'll be with Andrew Maguire in Australia because we're doing that event with Good as Gold Australia. So I'm really excited about that because I've been on his channel, so I've gotten to meet him. But this will be our first face-to-face meeting, and who knows what's going to happen out of it, right? We are a global community. And when I look at other gold dealers and people that work in that arena, that's what I look at it like. It's part of the community because the more people helping people get positioned into physical gold and silver is a very good thing. Now, of course, there's gold and then there's gold and there's silver and then there's silver. But, okay. And Granja Phi asks, SRT equals bail-ins? Bail-ins, bailouts, bail boo-boo. Yes, absolutely. Because remember, this is an opaque market, and they're doing leverage and leverage and leverage. So debt upon debt upon debt upon debt upon debt. This could easily overwhelm the central bank's ability to print enough of this crap to bail them out, particularly since we have virtually no purchasing power left. It's all about that public confidence. So, yep, bail-ins, bailouts, bails all around. And Bro asks, will hyperinflation flow over into Australia as well? Yeah, this is global. This is absolutely a global issue. Nobody is immune. And Amy Harrell asks, I have minimal amount of money in the bank, Lynette. Thus, I have mostly silver, fractional, and bullion, and 925 sterling, and a modest pantry. Well, that's very good. You do need some gold as well, though, and you can do that in fractional form depending upon your income. But just remember, gold is the primary currency metal. It's what they reset the currency against. So the silver is good because it's going to maintain your ability to feed yourself and do all of your basics, but you got to have some gold in there as well. And our Moosehead says, with everything that you are talking about, I have a plan. I plan to make a large USDA land loan. They have easy terms. My only risk will be my 30% down payment. Well, let's kind of take that plan a little bit further, right? Because do you want to maintain that land? Do you want to maintain your plan? So in that case, what you need to do is you need the right amount of gold so that when they do that overnight reset, bam, you pay that mortgage right off. This is not rocket science. It's just that a rise in gold price is an indication of a failing currency, and so central banks benefit by suppressing the price while they're busy accumulating. Why don't you just execute the same plan? And that way, when you do repay that debt, you're basically paying it wherever you are in the world in that local currency that has virtually no value. Just a thought. And I like it when people make educated choices. You don't even have to agree with me. That's why I give you all the links. Here it is. You go look if you have a different opinion. But I think, overall, I like people with strong opinions and I like diversity. So there you go. And Amy Harrell asks, Lynette, there is a new tax on inheritance. Can you explain that and when it went into effect? Thus how it can affect trusts. No, but I'll write it down and I'll look at it because I think it's that the old tax on inheritance is, according to my accountant, due to expire so that the inheritance taxes go up. I'm not quite sure what's going to take its place, but I'll find out. Arthur, can you make sure that I have that question? And I'll shoot an email to my accountant too, and I will get back to you on that. And Veganette asks, when will we, the people, finally push back against all these taxes? When is it enough? Well, this is the time to do it. I'm telling you right now, if we can come together as a global community, we need to take back some of our power. You know how you regulate those taxes? By actually having a vote. Now, look, we know the election is happening today, but does that really do anything for us? To be honest with you, no. It doesn't matter who's going to get elected. Things like this are not going to change. You know how you take back your power and your vote and say no to these taxes or anything else? You make sure that you have sound money. And yes, just in your possession is critically important. But if enough of us on a global basis, I'm thinking with 3% of the population, we could do this, then we would have a voice in those taxes, in those laws. And if you didn't like what they were doing, you could walk into the bank with one form of money and walk out with sound money. Because what sound money does to governments and central banks is it requires fiscal responsibility. And actually, let me show you that. Let me shut this down completely because I don't need it anymore. And let's just go to here and let's see. Okay, what I want are deficit spending. Oops, no, I don't want the Fed debt. I want deficit Okay, here we go. Okay, can you put that up now, please? Okay, this is the Fred. You know, I go there all the time, and what you're looking at is federal surplus or deficit from 1901 until 9/30 this year. That's the most current. Okay, well, look at this. When we had a currency that was backed by gold, and you, the citizens, could walk in with one of these and walk out with one of these, boy, they were required to balance the budget. Even going into the war, right? There still wasn't that much of a deficit spending to fund the war. It did, after all, after that, get a little bit choppier. But this is 1971, okay? So this is when Nixon took us off the gold standard, right? Closed that gold window, and now handed over the power of inflation to the central banks, which are, by the way, private corporations. And what do you see after that? A whole lot of deficit spending. This was a change in accounting. And by the way, there's been a lot of changes in accounting. So that means it's really much worse than what you're looking at. But once we are on a pure debt system, then why not run all of these debts? Why not? Why not? Right? That's how the system is built. Now, if you did this, if you were making and taking in a lot less money than you were spending and you kept spending, you're going to hit a limit. Well, guess what? So are we. We're going to hit that limit too. Except that it's much bigger because what happens is it impacts everybody. So something else I'm going to show you since we're here is if you want to know more about it, you click on more. And that gives you what it's been, 2020. This is annually that they're doing it. At this point, they're saying it's 1.8 trillion. Okay. But you can go back into the spreadsheet and you can look at all of those deficits, and surpluses going all the way back. So in 2009, like right about here, we were 1.4 trillion in deficit, but we were servicing 13 trillion in debt. And I went, how come we're servicing if we're only, and look, up until that point, had the deficits really been all that bad? No, they're certainly a lot more dramatic now. So I thought to myself, well, how come we're servicing over 13 trillion in debt if we haven't been that bad up until like the great financial crisis? This is what I did. I just showed you what I did. I went in, I moved all of that onto a spreadsheet. I went into the income part, the government's income part, put all of that into the spreadsheet, matched my dates, and then just went ahead and looked. And what I discovered is even from this point, we were compounding interest, right? So the interest on those deficits, we weren't even paying all the interest. So we didn't have enough income to pay all the debt or all the interest on the debt, let alone any of the principal. So we started compounding interest. Well, if that were you, if you had a credit card and you didn't pay all of the interest on that credit card, so that excess interest that you didn't pay went into your principal, and now you're paying interest on that interest, and are you ever getting out of debt? No, you are not. So let's see. That's basically, I wanted you to see that because this actually, we're not, October. So this is the fiscal year for the government, but we'll see what's going on. Okay. Mauricio Rodriguez asks, so can you please clarify what is happening with the UN and their new vision of everyone will be happy and own nothing? What can we do? We can come together as community and say no. We can take our power back. Because remember that one image, this is in Zimbabwe, and they had this huge sign, and it said, but what can I do? I'm just one person, said 7 billion people, right? We can sit back like lemmings and allow this to happen to us, but I personally am not going down without a fight. But I am just one person. What can I do? There's nothing I can do. But am I having an impact on you? How about your friends and your neighbors? How about just finding like-minded people? How about just buying physical gold and silver, making your vote known? Because if enough of us have this, well, they're going to have to take that into account. So what can we do? We can take our power back. Honestly, this is pretty lofty. I can tell you, never in my wildest dreams, while I knew that I was supposed to do something that had a positive impact on a lot of people, taking on the global central banks and the IMF and the Fed, that's crazy. I can't say that I ever thought that that's what I would be doing. Who am I? Who am I? I'm just one little person. But let me tell you, I realized in Australia last year that it really is mostly about community. It really, really is. And so I'm not just one person. I'm one person amongst all of you. That's why doing these lives and answering these questions, that's why that's so important to me. That's why I work so hard for you. Because I'm not just really working so hard for you, but to be really honest with you about it, I want to make a positive difference for our grandchildren and our grandchildren's grandchildren and on and on and on. And this is our opportunity because we are transitioning into a new system. This is our opportunity. If we miss this opportunity, I don't think I'll have another one in our lifetime. So I don't know if it's going to make a difference, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give it everything I have. Everything. And Boone22 asks, you have a, oh, thank you so much. Thank you for liking my outfit. I appreciate that. Now, I will tell you that Adam used to think that didn't matter. But I said, no, I know my viewers. It matters to them. I have to look nice for you guys. And I can't just wear a black t-shirt.
Sorry, Adam.
Sorry, Adam. I threw him under the bus. But he's learned that that's actually not true, that it does matter. But anyway, Chris Willis asks, is there a risk for insurers to collapse? Heck yes. Heck yes. Wondering if I should renew personal insurance or better spending money on metals. Okay. So it kind of depends. I'll tell you what I did when I still had a mortgage before I had managed to accumulate what I've accumulated, because I still do have a mortgage, but only because I want to execute my strategy. So what I did was I just had a term life insurance policy that would take care of any of my debts for my heirs. That's all I really cared about, just cheap term, nothing else, none of the whole life, none of that other, certainly no annuities, no variable annuities, anything like that. So it kind of depends. It would depend on your circumstance. And if you call us and have this discussion, bring it up because you want to make sure that your heirs are protected maybe to your debts or something like that. But don't throw a whole lot of money in insurance. I've been showing you that private equity has been going in and buying all of these insurance companies, then created all these garbage products like similar to what we talked about today, and then selling it through those insurance companies. Nope. Read your contract. What it says is that it is based upon the claims paying ability of the company, and that has deteriorated hugely since 2008. So there's a huge risk to insurers. And Secretary Booty Cheeks, which do you think would be better for a country? To have only sound money as legal tender or to have no legal tender at all? Probably to have sound money as legal tender, because sound money is an energy and labors and savings-based money. So when you're on a sound money system, you're trading somebody's labor for your labor. That is a more fair system. Additionally, because it's used in every single sector of the global economy, it's something where you have absolutely full demand, right? So it never goes to zero. That's why gold and silver never goes to zero. But in the current system, the legal tender that's legalized by the government, used in one place and dictated by people outside of you. It is a debt system. This is a savings system. And you have to have a monetary system or you have to do everything yourself, right? So money was created to enable society to specialize. And I think that is important to develop that community. So you got to have money, let it be sound. Do I think that we need it 100% backed? That's probably open to discussion. But I want convertible sound money in there. Even if it's 40% backed, I want to be able to take that out if I don't like what you, as my central bank, my we don't even need central banks if we have a sound money system. And Maximus Truth asks, Lynette, how many tons of lead I get per pre-33 St. Gaudens $20 piece, ma'am? Well, I don't really know how many tons of lead, because I'm assuming you mean bullets. I got to tell you, I don't really want to kill anybody. I want to have a peaceful global movement, and we can do it just by converting into silver and gold. I built out the exterior of my property and food because I want to help my fellow men and women. I don't want to hurt them, right? I don't want to hurt them. So I don't know how much lead, and I hope the time never, ever, ever comes that I would have to shoot somebody. I will never do that because they're hungry. I would only do that if they were threatening somebody that I loved. The rest of it, I mean, frankly, if anybody makes it up to my bug out, number one, they are a rock star. And so I would take them in and feed them. I would not shoot them. And Semini Welbeck says, hi, my question is, what do you think of the suspicious price action in GME and AMC since 2021? In my view, CNS internalization, spoofing, and market maker abuse of FTDs, etc. Your thoughts? It's all manipulation, right? Imagine what would have happened to the price of gold if they never came out with Bitcoin and people were looking to get out of the system, right? And what would have happened? What's happening now with the gold price going up? More people are paying attention. More people are positioning into gold. So anything with the stock market and the way that they leverage it up and manipulate it and all, yes, it's all gaming you. It's all FOMO, fear of missing out. Oh, I don't want to miss out on this. I don't want to miss out on that. Yes, it's all garbage. I don't own any of that, and I don't want to play in that field. And if I lost a few fiat dollars because of it, I don't care. I feel safe and secure. And I'm telling you, the moment that we lose all choice, I will be as surprised as you, but not shocked. And I'll be ready. And that's what I want for you as well. I want you to be ready so that doesn't have an impact. But no, don't be suckered in. And Dragon's Play asks, what are your thoughts of Lincoln's greenbacks, federal money created without any interest or debt? Well, of course, convertible into sound money. This is a lot lighter than this. I don't have a scale here. I can't tell you how much this weighs. And actually, if you carry it on your phone, right, and you're carrying your phone anyway, this is who I'm fighting for, by the way. That's who I'm fighting for. And yours that look like that too. And Arthur's, how old's your daughter? 17 months. I mean, this is who we really have to do it for because they can't do it for themselves. But yeah, real money that is convertible into gold, that is not created from debt and does not carry any interest. I mean, look, this does not, it charges you the inflation tax, but it doesn't charge you interest, nor does it pay you interest. The next iteration of money will, because they want to have, they meaning the central banks, want to have their finger on the pulse. And if you're not spending money fast enough, they will just drop those interest rates down and attack your principal. I mean, what happens when the purchasing power gets to zero? Why doesn't anybody ever answer that question? Because what happens is hyperinflation. All confidence in the system is lost. This is our opportunity. So, Rob and if I butcher anybody's name, please forgive me. But Rob Fakikti is the Canadian Mint located in Ottawa and Winnipeg, a risky place to store precious metals. Well, you know, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. We do know that the Central Bank of Canada does not hold any gold. I do not know whether or not there will be an overt confiscation, but that is certainly a strong probability because can somebody just tell me what their birth date was or is? And I'm going to show you something. Oh, that's the CPI. Yeah. Okay. Well, does anybody give a birth date?
Not yet.
All right. Well, we could use mine because I don't mind how old I am. Okay. And I was born on October 15th, 1954. So there you go. This is how much purchasing power from 36 cents, 37 cents, that's where it was in 54, down to 3 cents. So they have been robbing me since the day that I was born, since the minute that I was born. They have been inflating away what they forced me to work for and use as a tool of barter, attempt to save for future use, right? They've been robbing me my whole life. Do I really think that at the very end of it, they're going to go, you know what, Lynette? No, here, we've taken enough of your purchasing power. You can keep the rest of it. No, that's why I only do these, because I don't know whether or not they'll do it overtly, but they sure have been doing it. Price manipulation. You don't think that that's covert manipulation and robbery? So I don't have very much faith in them. I don't believe what they say to me. And I have become my own central bank, and that's where I'm most comfortable. And Dragon's Play asks, if in the future the government mandates price controls and makes CBDC the only legal tender allowed, outlawing gold, silver, paper money, how would someone be able in such an environment be able to make big purchases or pay off big debts, i.e. buying a house with gold in such a scenario? Fabulous question, Dragon's Play. This is a different category. I've got this. This is bullion. This is an American Eagle. This is what, if they were to do that, which it's not exactly what they're talking about yet, but this is what is held in IRAs. That's why for me, if I can hold it in an IRA, I'm not buying it because it's easy to confiscate, do a big sweep. But this is in the category where someone might spend $15 million on one coin. Now, I'm not suggesting that you do that because it's not necessary. You just want to be in the same category. So imagine what the value of this will be if this is the only kind of gold that you can hold and own and use legally. That's what I learned from my Uncle Al, who had thousands of ounces of gold the only legal way that he could, and that was in this form. This form. Today, this is the form since 1986. You want to be in a different category. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. It's not rocket science. It's just a repetition of history. Because remember, too, when they take the gold, they can do anything they want. All they do is they do, I'm sorry, I'm a little tired, but tum-ta-dum-ta-dum. I say it all the time. They have to pay you. I can't think of the term right now. Maybe some of you will. But they have to pay you fair market, right? So they can do that on this because they can manipulate the market, whereas with this, they'd have to look at every single coin. It's not worth their time. It's less than 2% of the total gold market. So, and it's in a different category, and they're not going to do it. Okay. And Ganja Phi asks, so Lynette, what happens to doctors and nurses and other professionals that are needed when they feel the onset of hyperinflation? Will they be paid fairly, or will they be forced to be like the masses? Well, they'll be more forced to be like the masses. But for those of you that are my age, you might actually remember when some people paid their doctors in chickens or eggs or bread or cookies or what have you. So there will be some different forms of payment. And also we see what happens in other countries that go through the hyperinflation. You know, it kind of depends on how dedicated you are, but you'll barter your time for other assets. That's how that's going to work. And that's going to be true not just for doctors or nurses or, that will be true for everybody. Barter will become very, very local. That's why I highly recommend 2 communities. The local community, so you get everything that you need and you have security in your food, water, etc. But the global, because we better have a say. We better have a say, or it's not going to be pretty for most people. And Mark Hemingway asks, after a currency reset, how does real estate values move? Surge up, then relax, and then there's a question mark. After a currency resets, the whole entire system is starting over from scratch. So historically, I can't tell you because it's not just likely to be one big reset, right? And globally on averages, currencies will reset 3 times before the public just doesn't buy it anymore. But we look at Zimbabwe or we look at Venezuela, and in both cases, they have now done those overnight resets and renamed the new currency 6 times, not the 3 that's historically normal. So I really think that it depends, right? They don't change what they're doing. They just change how they account for it. When the public loses all confidence, right, then we're going to start all the way over. And you, my friend, if you're holding this kind of gold and they do an over confiscation and this is the only kind of gold, you are going to be able to convert this into those income producing assets and be in a much better position on the other side of this than where you started. I mean, this is really, I know that I'm talking about all of this nasty stuff, but the reality is it's not all doom and gloom. There's always opportunity in crisis. You just want to be in the right place at the right time with the right asset. And that's what the sound money movement is about. And so, it's not going to surge up because all of that old money will be wiped out of the system. Now, in the middle of it, till we go to a sound money, then what you see happening is gold, because after a certain period, gold too will reset in terms of, in this country, dollars, but wherever you happen to be in the world, it'll reset in those terms too. That's why as soon as you get that first reset, bam, you pay off that mortgage. So that too will reset, but then what you'll find, at least historically what I've found, is that gold moves up much faster than everything and anything else because it's sound money, and silver as well, but silver does not fare as well through a reset because it's a secondary currency metal, and it's also used a lot in industry. So let's see. Mike asks, I know you emptied all of your retirement IRAs and converted them to metals, into these kind of metals, but I'm hesitant to empty my 401k. I feel safer having it and physical gold. And Mike, you've got to do what you are comfortable doing. So long as you have enough of the physical gold that you are holding so that when they do that currency reset and that stock market goes pretty close to zero, the gold moves up and recoups all of your losses. Everybody, regardless of what anybody says, including me, you've got to always do what you are most comfortable doing, because at the end of the day, you are the one that's going to feel the impact of it, to the good or to the bad, it doesn't matter, but you're the one that's going to feel that impact. So ultimately, it has to be your decision and your choice, and you have to do what you're comfortable with. I'm just saying be properly diversified, and it doesn't matter. And Jonathan, and understand too, I've been doing this on some level my entire life. So and I was a stockbroker, and a banker. So I have a high degree of comfort there, but I actually probably understand more than I should. So that's it. I invest into my personal level of comfort, and that's what you should do too. And Jonathan Laus asks, are you buying gold at this price? And what is the outlook for 2025? Yes, the answer is yes. I am continuing to constantly accumulate because I don't think you can have too much gold or silver. And I anticipate with all of the breakouts that we're having. Now, look, do I think there's going to be a bit of a honeymoon period? When whoever gets elected, sure, because people are hopeful. But quite honestly, the president of the United States, whoever that may end up being, is not going to change the trajectory of where we are. They are not going to magically have all these derivatives just evaporate with no impact. So, yeah, I anticipate a little bit of a honeymoon, but it would not surprise me to see spot above 3,000 in 2025, maybe even closing in on 4. That still won't reflect its true fundamental value, which is why I continue to buy, because there's not one doubt in my mind but that the value of, really, I'll just do it with 1 ounce of gold, is in excess of 40,000, and they're going to print more because what they just do. The key global central banks have all lowered the interest rates 50 basis points. That's fear. That's not to stick this soft landing. That's fear. They are fighting deflation. And there's only one way to do that, and that's with inflation. And what protects you from inflation? This. Proven. Thousands of years. And Kathy Piscatello says, hi, Lynette. I'm sure you're aware that Warren Buffett liquidated billions of dollars in cash recently of his Apple stock. Where do rich people put that kind of cash? And by the way, since you're bringing up Warren Buffett, if you have never read, we can put the link in somewhere, but if you've never read what his father, who I think he was a senator or congressman or something like that, I can't remember off the top of my head, but he did an extraordinarily interesting piece on the importance of gold being convertible. Warren grew up with this man. What do you think he knows? You think he's going to tell you? No. But I know what his father said, and it's really interesting reading. Can we put that link in this afterwards? Because I can pull that up pretty easily.
We can, yes.
Okay. Okay, so if you want an interesting read that. I found it extraordinarily interesting. And Linda Fontensil, Fontenessy asks, what's with hair. This looks like an old video. As the newer videos show a change in hairstyle, I much prefer this look on you. And actually, I'm experimenting with it because it is a completely new haircut, and I can do more things with it than I could with the other hairstyle. So if you just kind of bear with me, because I'm kind of having some fun with it. But I do like this style, but it's also fun to sometimes have it curly. So I'm going to just play with it a little bit. But that's what's happening. I have a new cut going on, and I'm having fun with it. So, and this is the last question. Oh, we got another one. Okay. Jackson, is there any possibility of the U.S. going to an energy-backed currency, oil? No. Do you have any thoughts on what that could look like? Well, over the years, there have been a lot of different things that have been attempted to back a currency. And I can go to Germany in their hyperinflationary period in the 20s, and they were going to back the new currency with rye because rye was a very important staple of that currency. So a lot of things over the years have been tried. Oil is, how do you convert into oil? Are you going to have barrels in your backyard? So, and also oil gets used up. There are many reasons why gold became the primary currency metal. And that's because it meets all the criteria to be a sound money. It is divisible without loss of value, like diamonds. The bigger they are, the more value they have. But if you cut a diamond in half, it loses more than half its value, right? It's less valuable. Oil gets used up. Also, like with gasoline and different things, in order to maintain it, you have to put additives in. You have to do anything with gold or silver, for that matter, right? Gold and silver in any form are monetary at its base. Doesn't matter how old they are, doesn't matter how new it is, how recently it's been pulled out of the ground. So no, I don't see an oil-backed currency. We did indeed retain our status as the world reserve currency because Saudi Arabia ensured that if you were buying oil, you had to do it with dollars. So we maintained our status. We've been losing our status. We ultimately will lose all of it. It's going to be much harder for us here in the U.S. than elsewhere. But no, I don't see that oil would make any sense. It gets used up. It can go bad. No. The only thing that I can see really backing a currency and having value is gold and silver, like they had done for many, 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 many years. And Mel asks, thank you so much. It's not really a question. You be you. You're beautiful. Thank you so much. And guess what? I can only be me because everybody else is taken. And so, okay. And here's the last question. Wolf asks, what's to stop the government from doing away with the 1933 no confiscation executive order for pre-33 collectible gold coins? Well, there's really nothing in some ways. However, they don't want pushback, right? So if you think about it, this is the way I think it would fall, the way that it would fall out. Let's say spot's at 3,000 or 4,000 an ounce. It doesn't really matter. But let's say it's at 3,000. Most of the gold is held in bullion form inside of IRAs. They do not want you to complain or push back or be ticked off. So what they would do, knowing that it's worth 40,000, they'll offer you 4 or 5 for it. Most people not understanding fundamental value will go, well, okay, it's only worth 3,000 because that's what Wall Street says, but they're willing to pay me 4,000. Okay, fine. And they would do this big sweep and they would leave lots of money. But you can't do these inside of an IRA. And they have different valuations. This has the same valuation, period, anywhere in the world. It has the same valuation. It's just an ounce of gold. This is classified as a collectible. So it's more rare than this. And you're going to pay a little bit more for it. And in some cases, $15 million. Do you think the person that paid $15 million or $5,000 or $10,000 on one coin is going to be willing to volunteer and give it to the government, give it to the central bank or the mint for $4,000? Heck no, they're not going to do that. So they would have to, and it's eminent domain laws. Sorry about that. I couldn't think of the name earlier. But the eminent domain laws, to your point, they can do anything they want, but they have to pay you fair market. So they would have to go and look at each individual coin to value. And it's frankly, it's not worth it. There's not enough of them out there. But additionally, that person that paid $15 million for 1 ounce of gold, I don't know. I could be wrong. But I think that they're probably somebody that writes the laws like Treasury Secretary Wooden did back in 1933, or would have the ability to influence those that write the laws. Take your pick. So it's kind of like healthcare. If you wanted to have the healthcare that the federal government has, I mean, you can't get that. You can't even pay a premium and get that. You're stuck with whatever you can get. Well, that's kind of the way that I look at this as well. This is my wealth insurance, that I get to hold it and use it in the normal marketplace to execute the strategy that I put together for myself based upon my studies of currency and currency life cycles since 1987. It's just a repeatable pattern. It's not rocket science. It's not really that complicated. We will walk you through all of it so that you are clear on it. And we will help you execute this strategy because we also have an exit strategy. So whoever it is that you might be talking to, they need to get specific with you on the strategy. And if they can't, run. Don't walk. Run. Because anybody can sell you gold. Anybody can sell you silver. And hey, having some of any kind is better than having none. However, there's so much more to this because this is a currency life cycle issue. And this is also our opportunity to take back our power. Let's come together and do that. So if you want to show your support, make sure you give us a like and do it on the way in of any video, please. Leave us a comment. Have these conversations with each other because it really does help the algorithm send this information out, and we need to reach as many people as possible. So please share, 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 share. Now, the Tuesdays videos are usually pretty long and scary for most people that aren't familiar with us, but we have lots of different content at lots of different time frames. So if we can be of service to you in any way, that is our job. That is why we're here. I thank you so much for coming today. And please, together, just look in the mirror and say to yourself, if not me, who? And if not now, when? And let's come together and create both a local and a global movement for our children and our children's children. And until next we meet, please be safe out there.